At the basic level, it has always been argued that the careful selection of KPIs does matter in terms of tracking what is important, but also in terms of the messages that are received from the data computation and the final results that are presented. In the end, the results that are presented are the ones that drive continuous improvement. They support the decision-making process, and they create a mindset as to how the maturity of any organization is perceived by top management, and even more widely across the whole board at the level of all employees. So a useful strategy for ensuring that KPIs are designed and driven in the right way is a good subscription. At the heart of it is to ensure that the KPIs holistically are balanced and present a detailed analysis. They are also supposed to track maturity and evaluate performance and the level of organizational positioning. And ultimately, they are also supposed to enable business meetings, business discussions, and business reviews in order to make decisions about where to go next, what needs to be enhanced, and what needs to be modified, or even what needs to be eliminated. So the operational aspects of a KPI management strategy must include 7 aspects. Is that the number of KPIs must be related to strategy comprehensiveness. In the end, if strategy matters and if the translation of strategy in terms of key objectives and goals is the pursuit of excellence and the pursuit of achievement, then it goes without saying that the selection of KPIs does also matter in terms of tracking, evaluating, analyzing, and reporting. The comprehensiveness of strategy must be surrounded by a sufficient number of KPIs that really matter. The selection of KPIs is not a tablet of stone, it's not off the shelf. There has to be flexibility in the way KPIs are experimented with, and any organization introducing new KPIs must allow for the learning curve in order to decide as to whether the carefully designed and selected KPIs are the right triggers for tracking, for monitoring, for analyzing, and for reporting, to ensure that KPIs are based on data richness, data integrity, data reliability, and that the sourcing will not dry up. This is an extremely important point, since KPIs that matter must represent the lifeblood of the organization and are not a fad or are not tracking on a limited period of time. They must be longitudinal, and also they must be designed so that they can maintain the tracking, the monitoring, the reporting, and the support they provide through enabling the right decision making. A hierarchy of KPIs in accordance with their relevance, their significance, will also allow the testing of the degree of alignment and how to aggregate the overall reporting through harmonizing the various efforts and giving a cumulative voice and a cumulative message to top management. The trends and tracking of maturity and sustainability are important, since the measurement of maturity, the measurement of enhancement and optimization is by looking at the as-is, the desirable standard, the extent of the gap, the initiatives and actions taken, and when reassessment takes place, it's really to see the extent of gap closure and the extent of which percentage of maturity is evident. The design of KPIs and the calculation methods must bear in mind that at some stage any organization would wish to benchmark itself against external standards, and unless care it has taken in the selection and the design of the KPIs. The end result might be comparing apples with melons, and organizations may not benefit from benchmarking unless the design is generic enough, unless the data collection is based on the international standards of integrity, and unless the computation methods is very much similar. Otherwise, we will not be comparing like with like. It is important that in the end, the KPI strategy must link to driving the strategic goals and the realization of an ambitious vision. And this can be done by having KPIs that are directly linked to vision realization, and some of them might be indirectly linked at supporting the realization of goals and objectives of an ambitious vision. And some key considerations that are important in the careful design and execution of KPIs include 6 pointers. This point is very critical since KPIs are means to an end, and if the end is to measure value, to measure outcomes, to measure impact, then the means do matter significantly. Otherwise, we will fall into the classic cynical thoughts of garbage in leads to garbage out. So relevance means current, means progressive thinking, means the new ethos, and means agile decisions, and means insight orientation changing all the time. So tracking is shooting ahead of the duck, and that is really the challenge of a modern organization wishing to become excellent. KPIs cannot be useful if they track retrospectively, if they are historical in terms of the data they are analyzing, and if in the end what is presented are descriptive outcomes of previous cycles of performance. Number 2, measurable. KPIs have to have data orientation at the heart, and they must be processes of computation and analysis. Number 3, valuable. KPIs cost a lot of resources, and the question has to be asked as to whether the outcomes of specific KPIs is meaningful enough and significant enough in terms of the value and in terms of the dependency that exists from its outcomes. So valuable is critical. Least valuable may mean that the decision to use something insignificant is easily made, and those types of KPIs will not need to necessarily be implemented. Viable means that the KPI is not complex and allows for learning, development, user-friendliness, wider understanding as to what the outcomes are saying, what the message is pointing out to, and what type of decision needs to be made. Manageable means that the sourcing of data is not an issue. The type of computation required is well understood, and the dynamicity of the organization is shadowed by dynamic behavior of KPIs through interdependencies and through synergies between various KPIs, and the wider computation for advanced statistics is to demonstrate how the ecosystem functions overall. Sustainable means that the KPI must have a long shelf life and can be adapted to suit an agile mindset, can be used to shoot ahead of the duck and look at future scenarios, and can remain relevant in the long run. What is sought from measurement of the results in the context of GEM 2.0 is ultimately to create an organization that is agile in its behavior and the decision making, is one that makes decisions based on rich insight, is one that constantly feeds from extremely large data and harnesses the manipulation and usage of advanced analytical tools, and is one that will be confident enough to manage retrospectively, manage current, present, and manage the future. In other words, the transition of an organization to behave like a dynamic open ecosystem is to gradually move from using measuring of outcomes from a retrospective and descriptive basis by answering the question what happened to the managing of oversight, which is the present, by being able to real time answer the question what is happening now through the use of investigative analytics. The predictive statistical usage through diagnostic analytics will help organizations manage through big insight by being curious, by using the inquiry mind, and by being able to ask the question, why did it happen? And ultimately, predictive analytics will help organizations plan and manage the future through foresight by using scenarios and predicting what will or what might happen. Ultimately, a pinnacle of success would be to use big data that is complex through artificial intelligence in order to answer the question how to make it happen through the use of outsight. The shooting ahead of the duck phenomenon will make senior executives in the future gradually understand that a KPI that is not relevant, that is not agile, that is not progressive in terms of its adaptability, that cannot shift the mindset with great insight from the present to the intermediate to the future, will in the end be futile and will not necessarily help in assessing performance outcomes.